Conservative Party donors was apparently to go upstairs for dinner with Dave and Sam. Mr Cameron insists these dinners were private and with friends and were not about fundraising.
In the 2 years I've been Prime Minister, there have been 3 occasions on which significant donors have come to a dinner in my flat. In addition, there was a further post-election dinner, which included donors, in Downing Street itself shortly after the general election. None of these dinners were fundraising dinners, and none of these dinners were paid for by the taxpayer. I've known most of those attending for many years.
But he has released the names of major donors who've enjoyed dinner in Downing Street. Among the so-called Premier Leaguers is the City businessman Michael Spencer, who gave the Conservatives £3.6 million. Financier Michael Farmer, who gave the party £3.3 million. And the chairman of JCB, Sir Anthony Bamford, who was given £1.8 million. Peter Cruddas, whose claims landed the Conservatives in this mess, was not among them. Now there will be an inquiry led by a Conservative peer.
A Conservative peer appointed by the Prime Minister. An inquiry into the Conservative Party by the Conservative Party for the Conservative Party. It is a whitewash and everyone knows it.
Their donors don't just buy policy, they elect the leader. That's why, after he was elected leader of the opposition, the first thing he did was go up to the leaders of Unite, put an arm round their shoulders and say a warm, heartfelt thank you.
And from my own point of view, yes, I'm a notorious tax avoider. But I'd like you to know, in the confidence of this room, that I still am. And I'm proud of it. And do you know how I've promised, Chatham House rules, no journalist, is every year, just before the end of a tax year, I see what my taxable income and I give it to charity. And so therefore to that extent I can balance both sides of that argument. So I remain a proud tax avoider.
All of this sounds terribly, terribly familiar. Remember Tony Blair and cash for honours? That ended up in a £1.5 million police investigation and no prosecutions. Just 2 years ago, David Cameron told us that lobbying is the next big scandal waiting to happen. Well, here we are in 2012, and party funding and lobbying continue to drag British politics into disrepute. This government claims to be the most transparent ever. The problem is, it's a transparency that can sometimes appear selective. Glenn O'Glass, Sky News.
Had to deal with a major donor to avoid over £1 million worth of tax potentially. And the deal was hatched here at Labour Party headquarters in central London. And this agreement will be acutely embarrassing for Ed Miliband, who's been repeatedly critical of big companies for doing their best to minimise their tax bills. The donor is John Mills, who runs JML, which owns a number of television shopping channels.
Love your pets, but hate the mess that comes with them. Pet fur all over your clothes, furniture, carpets and floors. There must be an easier solution. Well, now there is. Introducing Pooch and Paw.
The deal works simply like this. He's given shares in his company to Labour, and Labour then can keep the donations. They can only sell the shares with John Mills' permission. He's the majority shareholder in JML. And this deal is quite clever in a way. It avoids tax in 2 ways. There's no income tax paid because the donation is in shares in a company, and there's no tax on the donations because it's income to Labour, and as long as Labour makes a loss, which it has been for a few years now, then it won't pay any tax on the money it receives. There's nothing wrong with this transaction. It's been cleared by the electoral watchdog, the Electoral Commission, but it does show to some degree the extent and the desperation that Labour's going to get money in from rich people who aren't unions. It's been heavily criticised by the Conservatives and others for taking too much money from the unions. And it comes on a day that Ed Miliband is giving a major speech on benefits. It's been trailed all week, and there's now a real fear that news of this donation might overshadow everything he's trying to do on Thursday.
Well, as every day goes past, Ed Miliband's turning out to be a weaker and weaker leader. One day he makes a speech talking about tax transparency, the importance of people not avoiding tax. Then it turns out that his own party is being funded by somebody who has boasted about giving to the Labour Party in order to avoid tax. Ed Miliband can't have it both ways round. If he does nothing, he's a weak leader, so surely now is an opportunity for him to show, perhaps by returning the money, that he is somebody who takes his own words seriously. Otherwise, how can anybody else take him seriously? All of our donations, we publish them every single quarter. We make sure that they're clear and transparent. We're, by the way, very pleased and happy when people do want to make donations, and people see that as being the right way to support their beliefs and help the democratic process to operate.
But isn't it a sad thing that while we were doing that, the party opposite is still offering tax avoidance advice to its donors, and they haven't paid back the £700,000 of tax that they owe? Let me just remind the leader of the Labour Party what he said. If everyone approaches their tax affairs as some of these companies approach their tax affairs, we wouldn't have a health service, we wouldn't have an education system. So he's got to put his hand in his pocket and give the money back. I think what the honourable gentleman needs to do is concentrate on the massive problem on his front bench. Because I have to say, Mr. Speaker, every week till they pay the money back, they're going to get a question about the £700,000 that they owe to the British taxpayer.
Well, I think Ed Miliband is practicing the complete opposite of what he preaches. He's gone around recently lecturing people about paying their taxes. Now it emerges that his own office is advising Labour donors on how to avoid taxes. And the truth is, if people don't pay their taxes, then it's difficult to fund our NHS and our schools, and I think what he's doing is completely wrong. Well, the Electoral Commission today have said that this arrangement with the Labour Party is unique.
First of all, the reason John Mills gave us these shares, and this is a share donation that he made to us, is because he wanted the Labour Party to have a steady stream of income which we will get from dividends. The second point, which is not right about your report, is the Labour Party will be paying tax on these dividends. We will be paying tax every year on these dividends, and that is what we will be doing. And I think somehow in your report you said that somehow we wouldn't be paying tax. I can assure you that we will be paying tax on them. My understanding of this, and this is what we've checked with John Mills, is that the reason he gave us the money in this way was because he wanted us to have a steady stream of income. And actually, lots and lots of organisations receive donations on this basis. I mean, I don't know whether George Osborne is going to be writing to all of those organisations that receive shares in this way to say they've
Tory
somehow...
donor has been fined £55 million for its part in the LIBOR banking scandal. 3 of ICAP's ex-employees now face criminal charges in the United States. Justice Department officials accused them of deliberately undermining financial markets around the world in exchange for bigger bonuses. Labour is calling on the man who runs the company, a former Conservative treasurer, Michael Spencer, to give money he's donated to the party to charity. Porrick O'Brien reports.
Michael Spencer, the boss of ICAP, on the right, with Prince Charles at a charity event in the company HQ 3 years ago. Here, he introduces him to some pirates. They are not the 3 traders that have just been charged with fixing LIBOR rates. One of them earned himself a title. They called him Lord LIBOR. And you don't have to understand LIBOR to understand what's going on here. An exchange between traders, kickbacks, the order of the day.
If you can, please move 3 months up more than 6 months. Would be much appreciated.
What happens if they go down? 3 months looked higher yesterday PM.
Make 6 months go lower. They're going up.
And then, the carrot.
A Ferrari next year, if you can move 3 months.
Other messages show how the ICAP brokers negotiated payments for fixing the Japanese yen LIBOR rate.
Life's tough enough over here without having to double guess the LIBORs every morning and get zippity-doo-dah. How about some form of performance bonus per quarter from your bonus pool to me, you know, for the LIBOR service?
The chief executive of the company said that the traders involved no longer work for the firm. He went on to say that others involved also don't work for the company anymore. So, that's that then. Not quite. It turns out this story has political legs as well, because said chief executive is one Michael Spencer. Michael Spencer is a former treasurer to the Conservative Party. Over the years, he's donated millions to them. Today, he responded to the scandal.
I deeply regret and strongly condemn the inexcusable actions of the brokers involved. They have tainted the reputation of ICAP and indeed the financial markets as a whole. Their behaviour was simply wrong.
Now some Labour MPs smell blood though. One has written to the Conservative Party asking them to return Spencer's donations. The Conservative Party this afternoon wouldn't comment and told us that it was a matter for ICAP. The traders involved have been forced off the corporate plank. The sharks
Why is George Osborne taking legal action against the European Union to protect bankers' bonuses?
Well, we don't want to see the European treaties used in a way that they shouldn't be used. It's not necessarily over the particular issue, it's over the powers that the European Union has over our lives and over this country.
Can't the bankers look after themselves?
Well, we should be able to decide those things in our own country. And we've never signed up to such matters being decided in the European institutions. And of course, if you allow one thing to be decided that wasn't meant to be, well, then you find there's another 10 or 20 things that affects many more people. So we are very vigilant about what we call competence creep, about the European Union taking more powers than it was ever meant to have. It's one of the reasons now why people do want a referendum and do want their say and do want a new deal in Europe, and that is what we intend to give them.
Let's look at incompetence creep. ICAP, big city institution, fined £55 million for fixing LIBOR. The founder of that company, he's donated £5 million to your party. Shouldn't you give the money back? Aren't you ashamed to take this money?
Well, he's donated his own money to the Conservative Party, as have so many other people, and as people have to other parties. People are free to do that. They should be free to do that. No, I'm not aware of any plan for that to be repaid.
All right, probably because you can't afford to. Let's just recap this. We've seen Tory MPs parrot propaganda lines from the energy companies this week. We've got the Chancellor going to court to fight for unlimited bankers' bonuses. We've got a top Tory donor at the centre of yet another city scandal. Ed Miliband's right when he says that you lot are on the side of the vested interests of the rich and powerful, isn't he?
Well, again, look at the record. Look at what is happening.
I just did.
1.4 million extra jobs in the private sector, 25 million people with a tax cut, a Help to Buy scheme, which is going to help so many people, particularly young people, have the house that they need and deserve for the future. Council tax bills held down, welfare reform so that it pays to work. Actually, this is a government that is achieving things for hard-working people, and that will be highlighted through this conference.